One of my most popular quilts is the Twisted Geese quilt. It is a modern quilt with large flying geese blocks scattered across the quilt in different directions and rows. What makes it so charming is the almost random placement of the flying geese units and the use of a whimsical low-volume fabric for the background.
Hi, I'm Brigitte from Zen Chic, and on this channel I'm talking a little bit about my upcoming fabric lines. I talk about modern quilts, how to use scraps and other tricks and tips. If you like it, I would be happy if you subscribe and even hit the bell so you get notified each time when I publish a new video.
Let me show you the sewing pattern in different variations. Here is a variation with the Just Red collection, which is currently available in stores. The background fabrics are the same, and for the red colored triangles I use the layer cake from the Just Red collection. If you only use solid blenders for the triangles, such as the fabrics from the Spotted series, the quilt could look very modern and striking. If you then simply keep the background fabrics in dazzling white, it becomes a minimalist statement. Now imagine this quilt even more minimalist by reducing the triangles into black shades. You want to have a little bit more texture? Then use the black and white fabrics from a graphic collection. In this example, it is a sequel collection to Comma called Quotation. Hey, the fabrics won't be in stores until November 2020, so put yourself a reminder in your calendar. Which variation is your personal favorite? Please let me know in the comments below.
In this episode we are talking about the so-called no-waste flying geese technique. No waste sounds cool, doesn't it? I mean, everyone wants to save some money or so. And in this technique I'll show you how you make 4 units, 4 flying geese units, without wasting those pieces, as if you would start with a rectangle and 2 squares in the beginning. And all the measurements you need to make that quilt here are given in the sewing instructions, and I will link to those below. So let's start with it.
Basically, the quilt consists of 2 different elements: simple background squares and flying geese units. 2 flying geese units together form a square again and thus fit into the square block layout grid. When we cut a large plain squares and the pieces for the small triangles from the background fabric. The fabrics for the large triangles serve as a colored accent, and the layer cake pre-cut bundle is perfect for the variety of prints. For the no-waste flying geese technique, which I will get to in a minute, we only start with squares, not with triangles. The 2 small triangles from the background fabric are also squares at the beginning. We have to cut those and also the large squares that are inserted between the flying geese from the background fabric. The sewing pattern provides a precise cutting plan for cutting all the large and small squares from the background yardage. For the flying geese of this pattern, a layer cake is the perfect pre-cut to start. The pieces are already cut to the right size, in this case 10 inch by 10 inch, and you save some cutting time. It also offers a large selection of different prints on a low budget. A layer cake contains 42 fabrics, so squares that are left over when the top is finished can still be used on the backside, and the quilt gets a completely different look depending on the choice of the layer cake collection.
Now let's make some flying geese units with the no waste technique. Basically you need 1 large square and 4 smaller squares. The size of the squares which you will need to make the pattern are all given in the pattern itself. I link it below. So for the small squares you place 2 of them opposite onto the corners, edges exactly matching. And then you draw a line from corner to corner. When you watch me drawing this line, you see I do it from the middle to avoid too much stretching the fabric to the bias. Now I pin it in place. And now after the sewing machine. Sew a 1/4 inch away from each side of the drawn line. You start first and sew it on the left side, and then when you are at the end, you turn the complete thing around and sew it on the right side. Did you know that I have made a video about how to sew a perfect 1/4 inch seam? If you like the word that, I'll link it below. Back on the cutting table, cut on the drawn line between the stitching lines with a rotary cutter to create 2 sections. So next you will press flat to set the seam. And I don't use any steam. I flipped the smaller squares over, the smaller triangles, and then without steam, I just give it a 10-second press to make it firm. If you use steam, it could happen that you stretch or distort the complete unit a little bit, and then later it is no longer a rectangle. It could be a little bit out of shape. So without steam, that's more secure. Now you have 2 L shapes, so to say. With right sides together, you now place a small square on the edge of the larger triangle, on the corner of the larger triangle, and again draw a diagonal line onto this smaller square. Pin it in place. You do the same thing with the other unit.
Again, you sew a 1/4 inch away from each side of the drawn line. You can start with your first L shape and then kind of chain piecing by adding the second L shape at once when you sew on the left side. And when once you have both finished, you cut the thread off, turn them around, and then you stitch on the right side.
Cut your L shape in 2 pieces between the stitching line. You get 2 flying geese units, and repeat that step for the other L shape too. Set the seam with a good press, open the smaller triangle and give it a good press, about 10 seconds without any steam. As your last step, you will trim all units to size. You will make sure that the tips of the background triangles are a 1/4 inch away from the cut edges, and the diagonal lines go exactly through the lower corners. I have a specialty ruler here, and it is Deb Tucker's Wing Clipper. So it's a great tool with guidelines to help you get exact. In the end, you will have 4 units, and you don't have any waste as you would have if you start with a rectangle and 2 squares for making just 1 flying geese unit. This is quick, it is fast, it is material efficient, and in my case, when I used 4 different little squares for the triangles to end up, I have 4 different flying geese units, perfect for my pattern to use. The sewing pattern will show you exactly how you lay out these flying geese units and the plain squares inside the quilt layout. For the quilting, I went with a very simple all-over pantograph. Since the fabrics show letters here and there, so I thought, well, you should have a pair of glasses to read all those stuff, so I quilted glasses over the complete surface. And for the back side, I sticked with that seam and used the fabric newsprint from my series paper for that. If you liked this video, I would be happy if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you like, you can watch also my playlist for modern quilts, or you can get excited about a new upcoming line called Quotation. I'll link it below. Thanks for watching.